Lena Hart arrived at Falcon Ridge Military Base on a cold morning when the fog still clung to the ground like a blanket. She looked nothing like someone who belonged there. Her clothes were plain, her steps were quiet, and she carried only a small black bag that seemed almost too light for someone joining a military facility. Most people would walk confidently through the gate, but Lena kept her eyes low, as if trying not to be seen. And that alone made her a target. A group of trainees stood near the checkpoint, already in the middle of their usual morning jokes. The moment they noticed Lena struggling to scan her ID card, the whispers began. One snickered, calling her "lost girl." Another suggested she must have taken the wrong bus. Their laughter grew louder when the gate scanner beeped red twice in a row. Lena stayed calm, simply adjusting the card and trying again, not responding to a single insult. But then came Corporal Maddox, the loudest and proudest among them. He stepped forward with a cruel grin, easily towering over Lena. He snatched the ID card from her hand, held it up like a toy, and mocked her in front of everyone. The other trainees roared with laughter as he exaggerated her quietness, acting like she was too fragile for even basic training. Lena didn't argue back. She only took a slow breath and waited for him to finish. Just when Maddox dropped her ID card on the ground on purpose, something unusual happened. The base commander, a strict, iron-faced man known for never smiling, walked by. He glanced at the bullies first, but when his eyes landed on Lena, his entire expression changed. His posture straightened, his face drained of color. And then, in front of all the trainees who had just humiliated her, the commander stepped forward and gave a full formal salute. The trainees froze. Maddox's jaw dropped. None of them understood what they had just seen. Lena simply nodded to the commander, picked up her ID card, and walked through the gate without saying a word. But the silence she left behind was louder than any warning shot. Everyone felt it. They had messed with the wrong girl. The moment the commander saluted Lena, the entire base shifted into a strange electric tension. Rumors spread faster than the morning drills. Trainees whispered in hallways, in the cafeteria line, during warm-up runs. Everyone wanted to know who the new girl really was. But every time someone tried to search her name in the system, they got the same response. Access denied, restricted clearance. Even instructors couldn't access it, which only made things worse. Small incidents kept adding fuel to the mystery. During lunch, Lena walked into the dining hall, and several high-ranking officers immediately stood up from their table. Not because they wanted to invite her, but because they wanted to give her their seats. The room fell silent as they stepped aside with a respect usually reserved for visiting generals. Lena quietly declined and chose a corner seat instead, eating alone as dozens of eyes watched her. Later that day, a helicopter landed on the training field without warning. The trainee group thought it was for an emergency mission. But then a pilot approached Lena directly, requesting her confirmation for the scheduled inspection flight. She simply nodded, and the helicopter took off again. The trainees were stunned. No civilian trainee had that kind of authority. Despite all this, Lena kept observing the environment with calm, almost calculated precision. She watched how people interacted, how the unit moved, how discipline was maintained, and how Maddox and his group behaved when they thought no one important was watching. The bullies grew nervous. They stopped laughing as freely around her. They exchanged uneasy glances, wondering if their earlier behavior was going to come back to bite them. But Maddox, always the loudest, refused to back down. He convinced himself that Lena must be someone's privileged daughter, or maybe some political connection, sneaking into the base for special treatment. The idea irritated him so much that he started provoking her even more. Small comments, mocking smirks, fake apologies delivered with arrogance, but Lena didn't react. Not once. Her silence felt heavier than anger, sharper than any insult. And for the first time, the trainees weren't sure if Maddox was being brave or incredibly reckless. Because whatever Lena was hiding, whatever her true identity was, everyone could feel it was something far above their rank. The tension finally snapped during the biggest field drill of the week. The trainees were divided into teams, racing through mud, crawling under barbed wire, and climbing wooden towers while instructors shouted commands. Lena stood quietly at the starting line, keeping to the back of the group, as if she planned to stay invisible again. Maddox saw this, smirked, and decided it was the perfect moment to embarrass her one more time. As the whistle blew, everyone surged forward. Lena moved carefully, staying out of people's way. But when they reached the muddy trench, Maddox accidentally slammed into her shoulder with full force. She lost balance and fell into the mud, face first. The group burst into cruel laughter. Someone yelled, maybe she should join kindergarten training. Maddox clapped his hands, proud of himself, but then Lena rose. Slow, calm, silent. Mud dripped from her clothes, but her expression didn't show a hint of frustration. Instead, something changed in her posture, a quiet confidence, a shift so subtle but powerful that even the instructors paused. Without a word, she stepped back onto the course, and then the shock began. Lena cleared the first set of hurdles with fluid precision, her movements sharp and controlled. She slid under barbed wires with a technique that looked almost scripted. When she reached the climbing wall, she scaled it so fast that even the elite soldiers watching froze mid-sentence. Every obstacle she approached, she completed with efficiency that only comes from years of advanced, specialized training. Within minutes, Lena was not only catching up, she was overtaking everyone. The instructors exchanged stunned looks. The stopwatch officer kept checking the device, thinking it was malfunctioning. By the time Lena crossed the finish line, she had broken the base's course record, a record previously held by a decorated Special Forces officer. Before the trainees could process what they had witnessed, 2 armed security officers approached Lena with encrypted tablets in their hands. They stood at attention and asked, "Ma'am, your clearance codes for the tactical review?" The trainees went silent. Maddox's smirk faded into confusion. This wasn't someone with connections. This wasn't someone hiding behind privilege. Lena wasn't just skilled. She was trained at a level none of them had ever seen. And Maddox, for the first time, realized he might have picked a fight with someone who could end his entire career. The shock from the drill hadn't faded when the base suddenly went into full alert status. Sirens echoed across the compound, red lights flashed through corridors, and loudspeakers ordered all ranks, trainees, officers, specialists, to gather in the central hangar immediately. This never happened unless something historic or catastrophic was about to unfold. Trainees rushed in with confusion tightening their faces. Even the seasoned officers were whispering nervously. Maddox and his group stood in the corner, stiff with unease, while Lena stood silently among them, calm as ever. Almost as if she already knew why the alarm had been triggered, the hangar slowly filled with over 2,000 personnel. The atmosphere was thick, heavy, buzzing with anticipation. At the front stood the base commander, flanked by generals and security directors. Every high-ranking figure on the base was present. Their faces were focused and tense. The commander stepped forward, cleared his throat, and his voice boomed. "Today marks a transition in leadership. You are about to meet the new commanding authority of Falcon Ridge and the surrounding naval districts." The trainees exchanged looks. A new commander? Why now? Who? The massive hangar doors began to roll open, their metal grinding, echoing through the entire space. Light spilled in, outlining a single figure walking through the smoke and dust of the opening. Lena. But not the Lena they thought they knew. She was no longer wearing her plain clothes. Now she stood tall in a pristine white naval uniform, marked with the insignia of a 4-star Admiral, a rank almost unimaginable for someone so young. Her cap was tucked under her arm, her medals glinted under the hangar lights, and her gaze was steady, sharp, and commanding. A wave of gasps broke across the room. Murmurs swallowed the crowd as realization spread like wildfire. Maddox stumbled backward, his throat tightening. The trainees felt their stomachs drop. The commander's voice cut through the noise. Personnel of Falcon Ridge, stand at attention for Admiral Lena Hartwell, your new commanding officer. Silence followed. Absolute. Stunned silence. Lena's eyes swept the crowd, pausing for a heartbeat on the very people who had mocked, pushed, and humiliated her. Not with anger, but with a power that needed no words. Everyone in that hangar understood the truth in a single, earth-shaking moment. They hadn't just underestimated her. The moment the announcement ended, no one in the hangar dared to breathe. Lena, now revealed as Admiral Helena Hartwell, stood in complete silence, letting the weight of truth sink into every corner of the massive room. The same trainees who had mocked her just hours ago now felt their legs trembling. Maddox, once loud and unstoppable, stood frozen as if his entire world had collapsed. Then Lena spoke, her voice steady but carrying a force that cut through the tension like a blade. I came here undercover to observe discipline, conduct, and character. What I witnessed, she paused, letting her eyes land on each of the bullies, was a test many of you failed. Her words hit harder than any punishment could. She wasn't angry. She wasn't shouting. But the calmness in her voice felt like a mirror exposing every flaw the bullies tried to hide. Behind arrogance. She called out names, slowly, clearly, without hesitation. Corporal Maddox, suspended pending disciplinary review. 2 others, reassigned to strict retraining under direct supervision. Another, stripped of leadership privileges. Each name echoed through the hangar, like a drumbeat of justice. But Lena didn't stop there. She turned to the trainees who had shown kindness, respect, or simply stayed out of cruelty. She praised them, not with dramatic gestures, but with genuine acknowledgement. Some of them had never been recognized by an officer before, and now an admiral was speaking their names with gratitude. A few even had tears in their eyes. Then came the moment no one expected. Lena stepped in front of the entire formation and said, "This base will not be known for arrogance or fear. It will be known for strength, discipline, and unity. And if you still wish to prove yourself, I will train you personally." A shockwave went through the room. Being trained by an admiral, especially one with her record, was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The bullies looked at the ground, humiliated but understanding the truth at last. They had thrown insults at someone who could have destroyed them instantly. Yet she chose discipline over vengeance, strength over ego. As Lena walked through the hangar, the entire base stood at attention, saluting her with absolute respect. And in that moment, everyone learned a lesson that would never be forgotten. The quiet ones don't seek power, they simply already have it.